Hello everyone, we'll begin in just a moment. How's my audio coming through? Can you guys hear me okay? Any background noise or is my clicking too loud? I can't actually do much about that, so if it is, then sorry. Okay, great. Uh, so I guess let's just get started. Um, we're gonna have a bunch of things to get through, and it's a Sunday, so I want to make sure everyone, uh, gets the off time they need, go around and do other stuff. Um, so, okay, let's start. So, hello, thank you for joining us. My name's Dax Pandhi. I am the lead developer on Gaea, and basically these last several months, while we've all been collectively dealing with the pandemic and the resulting side effects and everything, we've also been working on Gaea 1.3 almost simultaneously with Gaea 2.0. That's a different topic for some other time. But 1.3, I mean, we're really excited about it. And I know everyone says that because they made the thing and all that, but it's kind of like, take me for example. Yes, I work on Gaea, but I also have to use it in production all the time as well. So it's good, kind of keeps me honest. And so we can't really go away from anything that needs to be improved or something that's not there. So with 1.3, it's if you really look under the hood, it's 2.0 in so many ways because we rewrote half the engine. I think if you have tried the recent bleeding edge builds, you'll notice that so many simple things like the startup time is so much faster. Like before, I forget how much it was. We kind of published a video somewhere, probably on our Discord, but it was like maybe I don't know, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, depending on what kind of computer you had. Now it can load in like a couple of seconds. It's faster in that sense, like almost in all the different in all the different areas. So obviously speed, but I think the number one thing, apart from any feature or anything else for us, was stability. So last couple of builds in the 1.2 series, they increased stability, and we were able to fix a lot of things, but we were very very mindful that we weren't there yet. That you guys were giving us feedback, and there was a lot that we wanted to fix and change, but some of these things, they were so deep in the engine. So basically, we ended up just rewriting a whole lot, and we also backported some things from Gaea 2. So, anyways, now one of the main things that I want to talk about are a few production things that I've been using myself in productions and teaching a few studios on how to use it in theirs. And now that with the bleeding edge, these tools are available for you as well. So, something else that's happened recently is with Unreal Engine 5, we now have Nanite, and we can have, we don't need to worry about just terrains. We can also pack like really nice, dense enough meshes and then reuse them everywhere. So we kind of wanted to, add some tooling for that as well. So you have that option as well. But I'll start with something that actually happened. So a friend of mine at a nice big studio said, hey, we need terrains. We need it quickly. We kind of like, they're not big hero terrains. We just need them to be realistic. We just want to set up this kind of a scene. And I was given, a few different sample images of what they wanted. And so what we did was we were able to set this up very, very quickly in just one afternoon, and we kind of did it on screen share on Zoom. So this is a version of that, and this file inside, internally we keep calling it our 1 minute terrain. So basically, it was just we dropped the mountain and then added logarithmic scaling to make it this big beefy thing, and then we did a bunch of erosion using the new wizard node. Now, if you haven't used the wizard node, and also if you haven't tried the bleeding edge, it is available for download. So you just go to quadspinner.com/download, and you can download it, try it out. You don't need a license. It's by default, it installs as community edition, so you can try everything. So anyways, so with wizard, it's kind of in some ways it's a wrapper around the erosion node. So with the erosion node, you have to mess with a bunch of settings, and sometimes it can take a while for you to find the sweet spot. So with this, we kind of packed it into a bunch of different recipes and exposed a few simple controls so you can make choices rather than have to find a specific number for something. And more importantly, you don't need to worry about the interaction between two or more settings. That's handled internally to a degree. So with Wizard, again, this one I'm just using defaults. I just add a bit of clamp and a little shaper to kind of bring this down and make this peak pop up a bit. And then I added fold, and so you can see it's creating all these nice details. That's what I love about mountains. They kind of they always have these nice slanted strata. And then one of my favorite parts about Gaea 1.3 is the rugged node, which basically takes this shape, which is already nice and rugged as it is, but you'll see it has fluvial erosion style down cutting. So all these lines coming down, all of this, that's great, but it's not enough, because in real life we can see mountains have all sorts of breakage, and we wanted to give you kind of like a one-size-fits-all node that you can use anywhere. So, and that's rugged. So just slapped on rugged. Yeah, these are all just defaults. Maybe I played with the seed a bit, and I turned on hard effect, which just intensifies how strongly it's applied. But then we start getting these broken plates, and up here where we were just looking at these striations, it starts adding little sections like this, and just breaks it up. So again, if you go back and here, and you can see the difference, especially in these lower slopes. So with that, add on one more wizard, and this time I actually used the desiccated recipe for phase 1, and I'll get into wizard a little bit down the line. I'll show you exactly what all the things are in case you haven't tried it. But essentially, you can apply erosion in 2 passes or phases. So the first one, you can have it be simple fast erosion, or the classic full-on erosion, or one of these other ones. And in this case, I went for desiccated, which just like sucks up all sedimentary bits here and there. It starts creating chaos all around, and it adds kind of like rugged like breakage, but it still maps it out from the fluvial network. So with that, like again, rest of it is just the default, and this was our hero mountain. So what they needed was more or less ready, or rather not a hero mountain, but a nice silhouette that they could use. They just needed like a mountain range, but wanted each of the assets to be really high resolution. And so instead of packing everything into one large terrain where you would have multiple peaks or a range, what we did was we said, let's set up a recipe, and then you can load it up in your own Gaea, make any tweaks you might want, and you can just output mutations. You can mutate it manually down here where it just changes all the seeds, or you can do it in the build manager where you can go like, give me 10 different versions of this or something like that. So with this, they could easily have a bunch of different mountains, and whether they were using a real-time engine like Unreal, or they were doing it in Maya or Max or whatever, they could mush these different models together. They would get nice procedural maps right out of this, and really didn't take that long. Um, I also added a bit of, because it was going to be a snowy mountain range, and so we had just simple snowfall. But now we have one more thing that kind of makes it more interesting and realistic, which is sunlight-based melting. And it's not a directly built-in feature, but you can very easily rig it using the new sunlight node, which is basically it's short for sunlight integral. So if I go to the 2D view and if I turn on raw data, so you can see it's just giving us these shadows over a period of days in the calendar setup here. You can also choose which direction is north and at what latitude your terrain is meant to be. So if I go higher, it'll reprocess. And you can see the shadows become deeper. And again, it's a cumulative sunlight map over several months. And so that I fed into the melt. And I go back to the 3D view and I increase the melt a bit and it starts melting. So without any melt, you can see it's all this. Not bad, but it feels a bit too much, especially with the bottom slopes being so barren. And so now with a little bit of melt, you're able to do this. And this feels more realistic, it's more controlled. You can even play with it where you can have like lots of intensity, like so, and then also lots of settle and thaw. But then also have more melt. And that lets you fill crevices, have it go deeper, towards the bottom. And so this gives you a lot of room to work with. But the main hero element here is rugged, because without that, you don't have these shapes. And the snow simulation node doesn't really add new detail. It just creates snowfall. And like in real life, the overall shape of the snow is going to be driven by what's underneath. And so right now, let's say I will, we don't have that much snow, so I will reduce the melt. And there we go. So you can see it's borrowing detail from what's underneath. And the more detailed your underlying terrain is, at least in terms of like large scale detail, the better your snow is gonna look. And when it does melt, like this, it'll start filling in these crevices like it does in real life. And so that makes your terrain that much more believable. And so that was the little story of how we set up a quick, I forget how many assets they made, might have been like 6 or 7, and then they reused that for a shot, and it's now, the whole thing is in production right now, and it worked out. So based on that, one of the things we really wanted to also focus on is, like, we have lots of toolings, and we wanted to give you concise examples of how all of these different things work. And so for that, in Gaea 1.3, we have the new start screen. So this is the new start screen, and you can quickly select any one of these archetype terrains. And if you want something more, you always have these advanced templates. So Canyon is one of my favorite new nodes. You can see there are a bunch of these. I like this. I also like this. There are many different ones. Let's just go with the Canyon, the first one, the advanced Canyon. One of the other things that was really important to us is to have a lot more documentation and complete documentation, because we've been kind of behind on that. I'll show you what we're doing with the documentation in a bit, but with these quick start templates, and we're now close to having 100 of them. So I think by the time we release the final version, there'll be 100 different templates, and all of them will have nodes like here. So even if you hover over a node, you will have a little description. And in the there's a new quick start section in the documentation where you will have everything for each of these examples with notes, with the exact settings we use, why we use them, and so on. So even when you're not specifically working with a kind of terrain, you can go through them and learn the different techniques. And the other part of creating these quick starts was just like whenever we work with any kind of a production, whether it's a game or VFX or something, we try to show the users what's the cleanest, most concise way of achieving something, so you don't end up with node spaghetti, and you just have like a clean graph. Some of you who have been with us since the early access days, you know I love my little 3-node challenge and the 5-node challenge, all that stuff. So we kind of based all these quick starts on that. These are our own production techniques, and we're packaging them into these little quick starts. So whatever kind of terrain you're looking for, you will find at least a partial example, if not a complete one. So here, we're making a canyon. And so let's just look at the canyon node. I'm just going to create a new canyon first. Oops, not the canyonizer, but the canyon. There you go. This is very fast. Let me just go to 2K. You can see it builds, what is it, like under a second. And it has this nice canyon shape. You can also like work with expanding the different areas. You can have the valley area be deep or not. You can work on the surrounding areas and flatten that out. You can choose the depth, obviously the seed, the scale. Like you can have it just be really, well, this doesn't look that realistic in this shape, but if you were really high up, this could work. Let's go higher on the scale. So we go in, and so you have all these shapes. If I reset this and we go back to the original, you will see that it naturally creates a river valley. So you could easily use something like the new C node to fill this up. I'm just gonna click the new height picker for level and click here. So there, it's applying coastal erosion. So the C node, it's a new one. It can do just simple water filling from the sides or just overall global level. Or it can also do coastal erosion while it does that. And so like if I increase the variations to 100%, it creates these nice erosion shapes on the sides. So anyways, that's the new canyon. So I'll go back to what we had before. The reason I start with a rugged and constant is explained here, that we're going to use this as our base, because the canyon, if you apply certain things straight to it, it may subtract the shape a bit too much, and we didn't want to do that. So for example, if I just remove this, you will see this is what we have, but I wanted it to inherit the shape of the overall rugged terrain. So by creating a constant, which is like 50%, we don't want it to be too high, then we hook it up to rugged, so it creates this. Now here you can see rugged in its pure form. This is what it's doing to something that doesn't have literally any data beyond a flat number. And so then we hook that up to the mask for the canyon primitive, and it kind of carves out a canyon inside this, rather than taking a canyon and then carving out the rugged details in this. Now, this may not necessarily be the way you might want to do it. You could just go like, well, I'll just slap on a rugged node after the canyon. That's fine. This is graph based. You can do anything you want as long as it's right for you. But there is an added advantage. You can change the constant node to be something like, say, a purlin. And I'm going to reduce the height for this by clamping it. And say, I think I want to use billowy. So it's something like this, maybe larger scale. And then connect it to rugged. Oh, it's too low. I would need to increase the strength, or I'll just use hard effect so it just applies uniform pressure everywhere. So there, it became this, and then we can do the canyon in that. Probably shouldn't have used clamp because this is a mask. Hold on. There we go. It was too low. That was it. So anyways, I will go back to what we had before. I'll turn off the hard effect. We'll go back to what we had, and then we go to the canyon, and we have this general canyon structure. On top of that, I always like an extra pass of fractal terraces, even though canyon does have kind of built-in terracing. And then finally we add erosion. And that's it. So you have like the beginnings of a complete scene right here. You can, you know, if your requirements are simple, you could just slap on a texture and be done with it. If not, you can do more stuff. And in that same way, we have lots of different quick starts. Like we have cliffs of all kinds. We have hill. Oh yeah, hill. So okay, let's look at that. That's one of our new primitives as well. So we had mountain, and we had a mountain range, and we had mountain this and mountain that, and landscape this and landscape that. But you know, poor little hills, they didn't have anywhere to go. So we made this. You know, there's no one way to create a hill, but we kind of went for this specific look where you get, you know, a little bit of runoff on the sides. You get flat areas, so you kind of have like a little bit of a rolling hill-like effect, and at the same time you can make it craggy and rocky, and so on. So with this, you have one more primitive you can work with. If, let's say, I'm just gonna go a bit high resolution, and let's say if this is still too smooth for you, you can of course go rugged. So I know I'm not looking at the comments just yet. I'll get to you guys in a minute. So there, we just, you know, we kind of retain the general shape of the hill, but at the same time make it rugged. Then we can add, say, wizard. And let me show you another thing about wizard. So we looked at the phase 1, and so I'll go none on that. We don't want any erosion, but we want a phase 2, and these are different effects. So you can add a bit of mild erosion afterwards, which is great sometimes when you just want to do like a second pass of erosion just to cover up certain things from the first pass of erosion, because in real life that does happen. So you can mimic that. You can also choose to have rivers. So this is where basically it will focus on the strongest channels in the fluvial network that erosion creates. Or you could have something more uniform with just channels, where it's focusing on all of them somewhat evenly, or at least proportionally. So you have that. And you can have like a pitted surface and all these different things. Pitted surface is kind of cool because, you know, we don't see too many terrains that are like this. This exists. Like, you know, I mean, I've driven to Utah once and there were like miles of this. This happens all the time, whether it's sandstone, limestone, you will get like little pockmark like formations. And so with this, you have a way of doing it. And you can, of course, mask it. So if you just want it on a bit of it, you can mask that. But this is what we wanted with the erosion node, is a new way for people, whether, you know, if you're a beginner, then you have powerful erosion available to you without having to learn all the intricacies. And even if you're a veteran, it's a great way to do common things, because, you know, even if you have presets, you know, if you want to modify something a little bit, you have to find the right balance between a bunch of different settings and all that stuff. So in some ways, we kind of created Wizard just for ourselves, because we were needing something that could quickly give us a few basic types of erosions again and again, and presets really weren't cutting it. Like, for example, I just reset this and go, okay, this is all good, I like this, I just want this to be more rocky. Then, you know, this is it. There's the extreme version, which just goes like this. So yeah, it's you know, it's a fantastic way to get started with erosion. Now, well, let's see. One of the other things that I want to talk about is rocky. Now, I actually have trouble choosing between whether I love rocky or rugged more. So I'm actually let me just start fresh with a blank scene, and I'm gonna create rocky. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys have ever tried this, but almost every node has like a 2 or 3 letter combination that's unique to it. So like, you know, rocky, you can just go Gaea. There are a bunch of other ones. It's one of my favorite ways to remember certain nodes, and I just end up typing it like this. You don't have to type too much. So anyways, here's rocky. Let me go a bit high res. This is what rocky does. It just creates a bunch of rocks, and you can choose the kind of breakage you want. Like these are larger plates that are breaking down into smaller bits. And I'll go like, no, I want even more. Then you get more. You can choose the roughness. You can jitter the rocks so they're not so uniform, like so. And you can also choose to have clusters. I'm going to go for small clusters. And this is a great way to create a rocky floor. But then also, you know, what if you wanted to set it up on something else? Now, traditionally, we have relied on, well, the combine node. Always, right? There's no other way to properly just mix 2 different terrains. There's masking, but it doesn't really work in every scenario. So let's say I have a Perlin noise that is a bit noisy. I'm clamping it down, but there's still a bunch of things going up and down everywhere. And I'll reduce the octaves just so we have a bit more visibility, but that doesn't really matter for what we're going to do. And so the idea is, okay, I want my rocks to be on top of this. So normally how you would do it is I'll go, okay, I am going to connect these two, and I am going to select 100% max, the preset, which is just, you know, selecting max here, making 100%. Well, doesn't work because the rocks are on the floor. So you would need to preserve the slopes of this. So then you would end up doing something like screen or add, which is okay. I mean, it works for the most part, but this looks somewhat okay because we don't have all the fine detail in this Perlin noise. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna up this, and now our nice somewhat flattish rocks, like you see, we have these flat details here and here and here and here and here, that gets lost. And so for that we have a new node. It's called insert, and we're very specifically making this a separate node instead of just making it another method in the combine node, because we want it to evolve on its own. So you take a terrain that you want to insert another terrain on, and this node assumes the other thing you want to insert is flat, just like our rocky node here, and then you hook that up to the second input, and it adds it on top while retaining the original shape. It will not let the underlying shape influence the general quality or texture of it, of the inserted height field, but at the same time it will respect its general altitude and slope, like so. And you have certain options where you can flatten out the surrounding terrains, because maybe, you know, what you've designed instead of rocky may not be this flat. You kind of want the both of them to merge. And this flattening zone, sometimes you might want to extend it further out, so that's another option. So this is one of our new lower level nodes where it will let you do this kind of crazy stuff. And one of the things that, again, this I'm going to do a bunch of videos on separately, because this is like, you know, very geeky, even in terms of hardcore procedural design. But the idea is we will develop recipes that are flat. They basically encapsulate a certain style of shapes, and then they're developed separately, and then we merge them together while just simply changing the underlying shape. And so that's going to be one of the big things. And this is going to be a general overview, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But we're definitely coming back to that. That's going to be one of the really fun videos we'll do. So, okay, let me get to the chat. I haven't been answering all the questions. So let's see. Update available. Okay, so this is not actually the release version. I'm using our internal build from like 6 p.m. and it will automatically not be part of the main chain, so it just sees what's online and goes, oh, that looks newer, so let's install that. So that's the only reason you're seeing it. Well, the version available right now is the latest one, and this is almost exactly the same, apart from a few extra tools that we use internally to diagnose it. Okay, it's asking, can you import different sized shape plane, pre-made in Maya, for instance? Yes, that's actually often requested feature, and not just a plane, but also like an object. And that is one of the things that we're still working on, but it's going to be in the final version. So you'll be able to go in and just import an object, and Gaea will use Z-depth projection to turn that into a height map. And you can, like right here in the viewport, you'll be able to do all sorts of transformations like rotate, scale, and so on, to get the exact Z-depth projection that you want, and kind of like bake that into a height map, and then you'll be able to use it with Gaea. You will also be able to do a kind of a live link with it a bit later on, where if you change the object in whatever 3D app you're using and export it to the same file, Gaea will detect it's changed and it will re-import it. So I hope that'll make it a lot easier, where you want to work with a very specific shape you already have in mind, or often like with game design, people will be making a very large map that needs to be very precise. So you'll be able to bring that in and work on that. Let's see. Rivers. Okay, river stuff. You can see a couple of sneak peeks that I posted in our Discord. We are working on rivers. We're doing something pretty different, and both in terms of the results and in the tooling. So yeah, right now we don't have a specific river node, but stay tuned. We have something very interesting in the works. It's not going to be part of the 1.3 release cycle. We're still considering whether we will do a 1.4 or wait for 2. We'll talk about that more later in the stream. Let's see, protruding cliffs and caves. Okay, so protruding cliffs, you can do it to a degree, but only through faking it. If you want real caves, then you'll probably want to export the final height map from Gaea as a mesh and take it into a ZBrush or whatever, and then sculpt it there. Gaea is a height field software, so it will always work with 2D displacement maps, or 2.5D. So at the moment, we don't have any plans for adding protruding cliffs or caves. But I think I can show you something that I created a few months ago. Oh, not this. Although this is also cool. This was one of the examples that I was creating initially to test out 1.3, and this is built from like 4 nodes, I think. Let me see. I actually gathered up a bunch of examples to show you guys. So let's see. I think I have it in one of them. Ah, there it is. Okay, so this is a 2D height field, but it appears like there are lateral cuts in it. So, this can be simulated. One of the things I'm really sad about is that this file no longer works, because it was built with a very work-in-progress version of 1.3, and it no longer works. So at some point, I'm going to go and spin up one of our older versions, and then somehow figure out how to transpose it into the new one, and then we'll make this available as an example so everyone can break it down and see how this was exactly created. This isn't, something that fancy. It's just erosion with a lot of deposits, and then fractal terrace node in min mode, or something like that. So yeah, and but I thought it was pretty cool. Let's see if it. There's a mesh. You can see it's like, you know, there's nothing cutting in. It's just flat like this. It's just the way the overall shape works out, and we end up with this. Okay, let's see. What else? Will the inward node come back? Yes. I actually, I think there's some information on that in Discord. They're going to come back just in a slightly different way. We had to remove some nodes because they weren't working well with the engine changes, and we kind of want to reduce duplication, because whenever we have duplication of of anything that does the same task, it eventually leads to trouble. So we'll get some of those things back, and inward is definitely one of them. Let's see. What else? When will tile processing be available? Well, tile processing is the big thing in Gaea 1.3, and so we'll go and have that ready soon enough. We didn't release it in this one because we're still working on some stuff, and I'll get into that a bit later in the stream. And let's see, what else? Large terrains, different biomes, all of it. We'll do a special stream just on that, and I'll show you a preview of that towards the end. As for ETA on the river node, none that I can commit to at the moment. Just stay tuned to our Discord. We keep posting work in progress stuff, and we'll have some info on that. There's a very good chance it will be in Gaea 2. And yes, Dylan, we will have river deltas, and we already have braiding and a bunch of other cool stuff. We have connecting rivers that you can either synthetically grow or draw yourself, a bunch of other stuff. It's still, it's not exactly prototyping. We're beyond prototyping. We're still figuring out the initial feature set. And again, it's not going to be the end of it. We're going to keep developing it just like everything else as we go forward. Seamless tiling. Is it possible to have an option to tile X times the input height field? At the moment, we can only preview the tiling but not output it. The seamless node should output a thing, because it's, well, you're not going to get, okay, let me go back to Gaea so people who have not tried it know what we're talking about. I'm gonna remove all this stuff, and we'll just go with our the Rocky node. And so the seamless tile, which is again one of our new great tools, it basically turns whatever height field you have into a seamlessly tiling one. So all you have to do is just tack on this seamless node, and it starts creating a tileable version. And to see whether it tiles or not, you can click or you can toggle the seamless preview, and you can see this is repeated in a 2x2 grid. Turn it off like this. You can also change the blending of the edges. You can shift the center point, things like that. And with this, you can create endlessly tiling maps. Now, if it feels like you're not getting a tiling map when you output it, remember, it won't repeat it and then give it to you, because that would be a waste of the resolution that you have set up. So what you get is this, which is ready to be tiled, and then you can tile that in your game engine or wherever you have. Almost every CG application will give you an option to tile your bitmap. So just repeat it as many times as you want in there, and you'll get it with the maximum quality from the output. What texture resolution is this terrain being shown in? So what we have right now, this is 2K. The terrain with the desert thing that I had the preview up for, I think it might have been 4K. It could have been 2K. I don't remember, but I will check that out and let you know. So let's see. Okay. Is there no x-axis movement for fault? Yes, there is, but it's a bit tricky. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to create fault. This is another one of our older nodes, and you can only move it on Y, but if you shrink it, then you can move it on X as well. Anything else that's immovable, you can always move it with a transform node. And that is, you just go like transform, and you can move it like so and so. And now actually, let me reset this. This is high edges, so I would use fill edges probably. Now you also have this eyedropper thing, so you can just go like place it here, and it'll place it there. Doesn't look that cool with this, but like let's say if you have like a mountain or a crater or something, it looks more effective. So let's see. 16K working builds. Well, we have tile builds coming out, so you'll just be able to do 16K or 256K, however much you want. Like it's you'll have an opportunity to go as much as you have RAM, really. So okay, now let me move on to one of the other things that I wanted to show you is so we looked at wizard and the erosion stuff. I want to show you sediment removal. So I'll just create a simple mountain, and I'm gonna hook up our good old erosion node, and it's 2K, so it's taking a slight bit of time, lots of slopes to simulate. I'll switch down to 1K. I don't want the stream to stutter just because of the high CPU usage. So, okay, now we have this. This is your typical erosion. We all know what it does, especially if you've been using Gaea. Now we have this new thing called sediment removal. So all the deposits that it's creating will be removed, and it's not a post process. It's actually part of the erosion simulation as well. So it's like having a bunch of little black holes everywhere just gobbling up all the erosion sediment that's created. So if I just give it like a little bit, you'll see these, the fluvial network and the down cutting becomes deeper. If I go higher, it goes deeper still. And at maximum, there are no sediments, only down cutting. And this can be quite useful, because one of the things I love to do is, if I'm gonna have a terrain like this, and then, but I also want it to be like terraced, I would rather do this first, then do a fractal terrace. And what it will do is it creates these nice indentation-based terraces because of the fluvial network that's already there. And so from there, we're going to add another erosion node, or in this case, we're not going to mess with it. It's just wizard, it's fine. And I'll add a bit of mild erosion afterwards. And there, this is, this is much nicer than if we were to do fractal terracing first and then erosion. But going back to the sediment stuff, this is actually very, very powerful because it can be masked. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the mask node, and you might have noticed that mask used to be a data map, but it's been now upgraded to a primitive. And there's a good reason for this. A data mask, by the way, through the system through which Gaea works internally, it's only 2D data, or it's explicitly processed like 2D data. But if you wanted mask to be 3D, you can now do that. All you have to do is hit T or right click and select show as terrain, and then when you go and I'm going to reduce the strength and up the size and just paint a bit, so you can now paint like this and preview it. And if you want to see a reference underneath, like I want to see the mountain, so I'll go here and pin this as the underlay, so I can press G, or I can right click and go pin as underlay. And then when I go to the mask, in this I will have to go to 2D view. So let me just erase all of this, and okay, 100% strength. So I'm kind of anticipating a shape here that'll be like a river. So I'm gonna kind of like get that and a bit of this. I'm gonna close this, and I'm gonna feed this into the removal input. And so now our sediment removal, which is at maximum, is modulated through that mask, and so we now have that here. So this is a great way for you to kind of control sediments in a specific place, or reshape the terrain based on erosion, like this, and you can reduce the sediment removal, and you can see it affects it like this. So that's another helpful tool. We have the same thing in thermal erosion as well. So let's say if I added thermal erosion on top of this, and well, let's just give it a lot of strength. It'll ruin the terrain, but it will demonstrate the effect. So there's our thermal erosion. You can see all the sediments coming out, and with sediment removal, it goes away, leaving behind the smooth, thermally compacted terrain. And this also can be masked. And the same thing, it exists in Wizard as well. It's known as removal. And you can't mask it in here, but you can very easily control the level at which it will operate. So, let's see. Couple of other questions. Blending different terrains. So Marcus, you might want to check out our YouTube channel. Well, you're already on our YouTube channel, so you might want to check out some of the videos. There's a mini tutorial on how to blend two different terrains together. Brian's asking about coastal erosion based on water height and river mouths. So we have some stuff in the works, but we're kind of keeping that for 2.0. And we'll come back to that in the future. Some of it's still in prototype stage. There's some coastal erosion stuff built into the new C node where it will, you can set the height and of the coastline, how it gets affected, and then you can also use the masks to do some manual erosion on your own on that. So okay, let's see. I talked about recipes, and so that's one of the things I wanted to show you. Let me get an image. So I posted this a while ago on social media and Discord and whatnot, but basically it's like there's this terrain, there's this terrain, there's this terrain, and all of them are the same. The only thing we do is we just swap out the input. And so that's what I meant earlier when I said you can create flat recipes. And this was mainly done with just the rugged node and a bit of swirl and erosion. So that's something that we're really exploring further. It's kind of like the natural evolution of the lookdev nodes. And one of the other things that came out of all of that was, again, like in a conversation with a friend working on some production, and they're like, we're using these scanned assets, but we only have these few things in our library, and we need to get this cliff face set up. And can Gaea do cliffs? And you're like, well, not directly, because, again, as we talked earlier, it's 2.5D, so we don't have any fidelity on the vertical faces. They're just stretched polygons where, in the extreme case, it ends up being just like a flat vertical fall. We were like, okay, but we do have an idea. And so what we did was create something like this. And this became the wall that they ended up using. They also used Seamless. It was a very early prototype of Seamless, but they were able to make it use, and then you'll be able to just repeat it on any shape. So to make this work, here's what we did. We set up a graph, which I'll show you in a second. We created these walls like this, and then just like you would do with Unreal's Nanite, or before in offline renders, it's always common to take a bunch of different assets, and if they're similar looking, you mush them together, hide the seams, and make it look like one larger object. And so to do that, here's what we did. This was our base output. You can see it's extremely low resolution, doesn't really have any major detail. So all of the detail comes in from the normal maps. So we were able to use very low density meshes. And so then once you add the normal maps on it, it starts getting all this cool detail. And then here you can see it's like, here you can see the three different objects where they're merging. And then here you can see it as a single one. And then of course you can take textures, procedural textures that you create in Gaea, so they wrap around these shapes very, very precisely, and you get this. So these were 3 assets that we set up in Gaea, exported them as low-res meshes and maps and whatnot, and this is a V-Ray render. So this, initially we thought this might become slightly complex, but it's really not. And it is one of the quick starts that we are shipping in. I think it's already in the bleeding edge. If not, it will be in the next one. It's called Craggy Slope, and it'll be under Cliff. So let me open that up. Okay, so here's what we have. This is one of the assets that we created. I'm going to show you very quickly how it's been created. You can break it apart in the quick starts when you get your hands on it. But again, Rocky plays a very important role. So I created this Rocky node, and then I mixed it just using screen with a gradient. So it then gave me this slope. And this kind of was our starting point. We combined it with cracks. So the new cracks node has this distance-like mode. So if we go into 2D, you can see this is what it's creating. Kind of like a more filtered version of Voronoi that's more useful for subtractions. Then it's warped and warped again and clamped. So it becomes like this. Because we don't want to create Voronoi sections, we just want large cracks. And then that's subtracted out of the main shape to create this. Alternatively, you can just use rugged. That's very, very legitimate. Here, we just wanted certain larger cuts, like here, so that's why we ended up using cracks. And then it gets eroded, so we get this detail, all of this here, nice slopes. And then we have a second piece, which is the plates, like so, which is then transformed to just rotate it like this, and then clamp it down so that instead of being like this, which is too deep, it's flatter like so. So you can see the clamp is halfway both. Then we add a bit of hydro to it to soften the edges. And then we blend these two together using multiply. So what happens is this is flat, this is sloped, and we use this as the multiplier, this is the base, and the resulting thing is this, where we get the larger blocks that were created by plates, but we get the detail that was created by this, and we end up with this. So you can see there are these larger portions going in, and that makes it more useful for a wall. And then finally, we add surface. It's a nice little surfacing node. Pardon the pun, completely unintentional for once. What it does is it actually enhances all the tiny detail and make it look sharper. It's pretty much like what you would do with a bitmap to sharpen it. It just does it more height field friendly. And then add some texture and a rock map and combine it and then give it a sat map, and you have this nice asset. Now, you will ask me, hey, but this is not really flat. So you're going to give me a twisted little mesh that I have to set up like 30 degrees in a weird way, and I'll have to, always be confused by my gizmo and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's a very cool trick for this. And this is one of the reasons why I love using gradient to create our slope. When we are ready with all of this and ready to export it, just connect these two and choose subtract. And then subtract it until it starts creating holes. There it is, there's the first hole. So I will go and type in 55. That's almost there. I think 50 should do for us. There, now this is relatively straight. And then that's what you can export. Simple as that. Now, another thing you can do is just add seamless to it. Oh, hello. Something not right. Oh, this is what I get for using my internal build. Well, it should work in the bleeding edge that you have already. And the idea is then this will turn it into a seamlessly tiling map, and then you can apply that to anything. And so that's what we ended up doing, where instead of just exporting out the mesh, we could also then export out just maps and then use a plane that you can use, like you can just pull the vertices with soft selection or something like that, reshape it how you want in the larger terms, like the larger blocks, and then have this give you all the other detail, and then you get something like this. Now, we talked about mesh export. I want to show you something else that we have. And I'll bring up Crater Field. This was one of my really most fun experiences with the new nodes, because in Crater now you have the Crater Field, and so this was just add Crater, found some nice shapes by randomizing the seed, and then added fractal terraces and erosion on top of it, and again with sediment removal, so it's not creating extra sediments, and you get this. So that was pretty fun. Let's see. I will switch to the topology view, maximize. And here you can see that the mesh is not uniform. So it's triangular and the topology is clean, but it's actually adaptive. So this is based on our new algorithm that's available in the measure node. So instead of choosing triangles or quads, you can choose optimized triangles, and you can choose a target count, and it will give you something, very close to that exact number based on the shape. And what it'll do is it will reduce the number of polygons used when there isn't enough detail needed. So if I go out, and here again I'm relying on the normal map for all these tiny things. I think for the kind of use that I had and many other people might have, like, you don't want to waste your polygons on all the tiny details. So this way you can have some nice LODs, you can have normals drive all the small detail, and I think in our tests we found that, again, based on what kind of shape you have, you can save almost like 40-50% polygons. If you end up with something like that's a hero mountain, and on the sides you have just flat areas, I think I should have an image like that, like this. So this is that hero mountain, and everything else out here that would get wasted, especially if you have a uniform grid. So then whatever amount is being used here, you have to waste here. And if you're losing detail here, you increase your polygon count, and you also lose a lot of it unnecessarily into this, because it's just so forcefully even. But now it can be curvature specific, and wherever it detects stronger curvatures, it will automatically budget more polygons. And so when you go, okay, my budget is 65,000 polygons, then it will make sure that these polygons are spent where they're needed the most. And here's another wireframe view of the same thing, and you can see lots of density here. These sharp lines that you see, those are vertical faces almost, I think. And then out here, it adaptively degrades the number of polygons used, and that's going to end up saving a lot of memory and hard disk space and whatnot. And this one's more on the slope. So even on the slope, it's mindful of that, and it's, again, adapting everything. The vertical faces that we talked about, you see here, even there, it'll try to budget it out so that we don't lose too much. And so that is one of the great new memory and time, well, not time, but, well, unless you're counting loading, but it's a memory and size saving option in Measure. We have new dunes. It's a small enough thing, but we kind of wanted to redo this because what we had wasn't exactly working in certain things, especially when people wanted to do larger stuff. So you can now control the dunes more than before. You can have all sorts of wind effects and the direction of the larger and smaller dunes. So you can do all sorts of stuff. Someone actually created like a riverbed like effect with this. And then another node that's like a lot of fun is the drift noise. And so the drift noise is kind of like that, kind of like dunes. They kind of come from the same genome, so to speak, but it creates these overlapping plates. And I'm not going to do really anything with this except let's merge these two. And I'm just going to use max mode. I'll lock my preview to combine and just bring up the plates just a little bit. Okay. Aha, almost there. Not enough. So 4.4. There you go, things like that. So if you want to create little protrusions like this, the drift noise is great. You can do all sorts of weird things with it. For example, let me reset this, and I'm gonna change the direction of the small structure. So these are now moving independently. And just like, we use Berlin noise to create like permutations and then create all these different things with it after filtering it and whatnot, you can use drift noise to do the same. And you can also increase the octaves, which gives you more and more subdivisions and things like that. There's, chaos channels, just try it out. It's actually a lot of fun. Let me see, a few more questions. Recommended tutorials. So we have a bunch of new things in the works, free material for everyone. That'll be on our YouTube towards the release of 1.3. I recently did a 4.5 hour tutorial for the Gnomon workshop, so you might want to check that out too. But as for documentation, so we've been working on that as well. We want to make sure that when we come out with 1.3, we have really good complete documentation for you. So let me give you a look at that. Let me just fire up our local server. And okay, so this is what the new documentation looks like. We have, this is the node reference, and for something like say Wizard or Erosion, which are very important, and they are like, as far as the interconnectedness of settings and everything goes, it's subtle. There's lots of stuff to be said about it. So we have lots of details, and we have one more thing for you where anything like any setting, you can actually open up this preview. There's this little preview thing, like say, okay, so sediment removal, and then you can go and just use this to quickly look at, okay, how does that work in this? And for others where it's a longer slider or something, you can do that for the same thing as well, and it'll give you a lot of different options. I'm not sure which ones are complete. We actually wrote a software that does this, and it creates large data sets of all the different settings, and we're still integrating that, but I think we might have one for maybe anastomosis. I think it's for impact. So yeah, you can see how impact works. This might be an old build. Looking at the effect, it's changed a bit in 1.3. But again, this gives you a great idea without having to actually experiment on your terrain, and you will get it for all the settings and all the nodes. For more general topics in the user guide, like say eroding terrains, just the concept itself, we have a lot of new material covering every different aspect that you'll come across. We also have little comparisons of where you might want to use Wizard, where you might want to use Erosion. Some good strategies on how to bake, using baking to make things faster, and so on. Especially linchpins, which will help you save a lot of RAM, especially if you have a few dozen nodes. And then look dev, we have examples for everything, and when you get into the actual node, there's more detail there. And a bunch of different things. I think in learning, we're going to have quick starts where like I said, this is still under construction, but we will have details on everything. You can see the settings that were used and the general reasoning behind each decision, and we'll have that for all the 100 or so examples that we're going to ship with. And then, of course, beyond that, we have the other tutorials and techniques, and we're also going to create a full list of third-party offerings. So, if there's user-generated content, whether it's free or for sale, whatever, everything will be listed here, and you'll have options to look at on where you can go and learn about Gaea. So let's see, a few more questions. So is it paid? No, Gaea is perpetual, thankfully, meaning you're only going to pay once. You own your license. We're not going to take it from you, like the software of old. And we have absolutely no plans on changing that. We do offer custom rentals if someone needs it for, a short period in a studio setting or something, and you can get in touch via support and we'll help you set that up. But no, otherwise you only pay once. This version, the 1.x stream of releases, especially with early access, they've been coming out since 2018, and we've had some major updates. And all of it is free. You get all those minor updates for free, and when Gaea 2 comes out, you can upgrade to that, and all existing users will get a discount. And we'll have more details on that on the website. And anything we don't have on the website, feel free to email support. We'll help you out. Oh wow, I missed a bunch of questions. So let's see. I'll quickly go through that. Triplanar mapping. Yes, we have some stuff, on the board for that for Gaea 2, but let's see how that comes off. Forums, yes, we know the forums. So a few months ago when we set up the forums, we made the decision of going with this newer forum software that was still beta, because we thought that it had the most promise of, features and everything that we would need, and it's customizable enough. We would love to eventually hook it into Gaea itself, so we can help you find solutions from other users, or if you want to contribute like presets, samples, whatnot. So we went with that, and recently there have been a bunch of bugs, and we've been just we're a small team, and we've been really focused on getting Gaea 1.3 out, because we know so many of you are waiting on it to move forward with projects. So we're going to prioritize that, and probably like by the middle of this coming week or something like that, we're refreshing the servers, installing the latest stable version of the forums. You will not have those problems after that. Sorry about that. Let's see, what else? Starter files for Houdini. So we have a bunch of them available on GitHub. Let me see if I can pull it up. And we will ship them. So when the 1.3 version comes out, there will be a bunch of new quick start files specifically for Houdini, and with documentation. So yeah, these are a bit old, but so if you go to QuadSpinner / quick starts, we have them on GitHub. I'll post this link in Discord and our social media and elsewhere. We'll provide a zip file. So there are a bunch of Houdini quick starts, and they cover things like there we go, erosion or igneous or impact rate. There's a bunch of different examples. And they have both the input and output set up, so you can use it straight with your SOP in Houdini. And as we get closer to finalizing all the bits and pieces of 1.3, we're going to work with the great folks at Side Effects and make sure that as we release, the bridge and 1.3 are talking fluently with each other. Let's see, what else? Very large landscapes, multiple tiles. So as I mentioned before, we're going to do a separate stream for that, and tiled builds, which is still in development and probably going to be a little bit more, because we're working on a few things, which I'll show you in just a moment. But when that does, we'll get into that in lots of details. let's see, one more. There are fewer coloring samples in the new set of quick starts. Will there be more? Yes. Uh, I think at least half of them will have a texturing component to it. Uh, and we'll do some special ones that are less focused on the landscape and more focused on the coloring aspect of it. And there are a few videos on our YouTube channel right now. They may look a bit older because Gaea has changed slightly, but the coloring aspect has not really changed. You'll find some really good techniques in there. But yes, we will definitely add more stuff for that. And so let's see, any plans for integration with World Machine as mentioned last year? No, at this point, we are not really looking at integrations beyond Houdini. So one of the big things that's going to happen, wait, what's this? Can we make Dylan the god of QuadSpinner? Dylan's already the god of QuadSpinner. He's been with us since the beginning, and you know he's family for us. And so yeah, he's already the god of QuadSpinner. So as far as integration goes, there's one great thing that we're doing with Gaea 2 is we're going to have an SDK, a full SDK where you have deep control over just about everything. And so we will add bridges or integrations of different sorts for all major applications like Maya and Unreal and Unity and whatnot. And the few things that we can't get to, you're more than welcome to go use these tools and add that bridge yourself. Is Linux support planned? Yes, we know this is very important to you and we are looking into it. I can't get into that right now, but stay tuned to our Discord. When we have some movement on both Linux and Mac, we'll let you know. We're actively looking into this, and we do have a few prototypes as well. Let's see, what else? Let me now show you some stuff about tiling, because I know everyone's been waiting for that. So I'm not gonna run up the version because we're still working on some of these things, and I don't want people looking at certain things and thinking, well, that's how it's gonna be, and then we ship, it'll be slightly different. So I'll give you some slides. What's a good presentation without slides? Okay, I'm lazy. I didn't even make a PowerPoint. These are just images, but let's just call them slides. So here I have this landscape. It's simple. It's one of the samples, I think, one of the quick starts. Anyways, it's this river canyon thing, and this is going to be a tiled export of, say, something like 3x3 tiles. And what I want to do is I want to focus on just this. So I want to zoom in and work on this. Well, now, up to, if your individual tile output, if it's up to 4K, we will now have the ability to give you one-to-one previews. So you will be able to use this new drop-down that we're adding. And so when you have tile builds turned on and build, you go here and you go, okay, here's my little grid. You click on something and you go, okay, give me that tile. And Gaea will zoom in. So it's this little crooked little corner here in the river. And that's it. So you're zooming in. And in this configuration, I had my individual tiles set to 1K. So the overall thing was going to be like 3K something by 3K. And so it could be 4K, that's fine. And you'll get a real-time preview of a one-to-one preview of this, and you can go in and see what you're doing. You can modify the graph and see things. We have a new tiled workflow coming in, so even if you're using screen effects, something that doesn't necessarily work with tile builds, you will still be able to use them using a new a special tile synthesizer mode that module that we've added to it. It's a bit difficult to explain, so soon enough, when we do the tiling live stream, I'll show you everything about it. Now we're adding one more small but helpful feature. So when you have tiling enabled and you're doing blending, you can turn on the overlay mode, right click and choose to have the blending margins, and it will show you this. So here you know how much is going to be blended with the neighboring tile in the final output. So there are two great things about this. Yes, we can have arbitrary zoom windows and you go like, okay, this is my one sector, this is my other sector, and that is something we have planned for the future. But more importantly right now, you can lose certain details or certain shapes rather, when you're doing a tiled export and things get blended. So with this, you will be able to preview your tile, you'll be able to see exactly what it will look like in the final output. You'll even be able to walk on it. And then in a subsequent update, you'll be able to see neighboring tiles as well. And here you get the blending area, so you can make sure that things are not being lost in that. We also have the new overlays where you can load up a custom image or use one of the sample ones that we provide. So in this, we have a colored grid to help you locate where something is. Maybe if you're doing like game dev, you will have like a hand-drawn map of where the different areas are, color-coded and whatnot. So when you zoom, like I'm zooming out now, so this is the whole map with the 4 quadrants and the different colors inside. When you use the 1.1 preview, that gets projected appropriately on this as well. So you'll be able to find your way around things. You'll be able to take references and overlay them. And this also works while you're drawing and so on. And of course, it works without tiling as well. So that will help you navigate your way through tile builds a bit more easily. And yeah, so we're now kind of coming to the close. This is, again, don't worry about it. We'll keep continuing this in Discord and Instagram and elsewhere. You can find us anywhere, and we're more than happy to talk to you anytime. We're planning to actually do more live streams as well, kind of as we're getting out of this whole pandemic thing. So let's see if I missed anything else. Does Gaea use and generate vector displacement maps? No, it does not. We're not really focused on vector displacement at the moment, for many different reasons that you can look at in Discord and other places. It's not on the plans. We're working on something, let's say, different and more useful, and something that costs a lot less memory in actual usage. And we'll have more for that at some future date. I'm gonna quickly look at my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. We'll do some more tutorials on specific nodes and like how you can hand draw things. But like I showed you, you can turn on if you right click, let me create a mask. And let me just delete this. I'll just show you quickly. Why wait for the next one? I'm gonna add rugged, for example. And I'm gonna hit T to make sure both of these become terrains and not masks. And now I'm going to go to rugged and press F to have my focus here. Then I'm going to go back to edit mask. I'm going to use a lower strength. And what I can do is I can start drawing a shape. I'm going to make it a bit bigger and the strength even lower, so I can have more control. And now I can increase the power of the blur. And rugged's being applied. Again, it's I think I can increase the strength or use hard effect like that. So there we go. That looks cool. And now I'm going to add a wizard node to this and let it have a bit higher strength, like so. And then I'm going to add a fractal terrace. And then I'm going to add another wizard, kind of like we did before. I'm going to hit F here. I'm going to go back to my mask. And there's some updates coming for the tooling for this to make all of this easier. And we'll get into that in the next stream as well, once we have the actual tools so we can show you. But again, going back here, I can now draw, and my focus is here. Or rather, my preview is locked here because this is my pin node. I can go back to mask and I can change things around, like here, and I can get a fast update of this. I can use this in negative mode, and I can erase some of this. And so this gives you a nice and fine level of control, especially when you want to hand draw a specific shape. And now with Rugged and Rocky and all these tools, and of course the existing look devs like Stacks, you can easily take this basic hand-drawn shape where you don't have to worry about the details and then have these nodes do all of that for you. And you can still work from either an imported shape or this mask, and then you can have the best of both worlds. So that's all the time we have right now. Any questions we didn't get to, I'll try to answer afterwards, or find us on Discord. And again, if you haven't had a chance to try out the latest edition, highly recommend trying it out. This is the time where, if you have any feedback, we will be able to implement it as best as we can. What we can't implement right now, we'll try to schedule that in for any subsequent updates. Even if it's something small, don't be shy. Let us know. And if you're working on a project where you can't really share stuff, please DM us. We're happy to protect your privacy on any projects. And all we need to know is where you think we could make Gaea better for you. If there's something in your workflow that needs to be addressed, we're more than happy to listen and implement whatever we can. So try out that bleeding edge. Take a look at these samples. We're going to keep releasing more stuff every week as much as possible. We don't anticipate this bleeding edge cycle to be that long, but again, as I might have mentioned in a couple of places online, it's Gaea 1.3 is going to be our LTS or long-term support. So once we ship 1.3, there may be a few minor updates, but we're also beginning work on Gaea 2, which is kind of like been passively being worked on for a while. And so we want Gaea 1.3 to be stable so that you can use it in production for however long your production lasts, whether it's a year or 2 years or 3 years. And we'll do our best to keep supporting it for a while. We'll let you know if there's what kind of end of support date that we have planned. Right now we don't have one. We're going to support it for quite a long period. But then soon enough we'll have Gaea 2 and we'll have a bunch of new live streams for that and whatnot. So anyways, that's all for the future. Thank you so much for joining us and taking a look at some of these new things. We'll do more. We'll talk more. Find me or the rest of the team on Discord or Instagram, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you so much for joining us again. Hope you all have a pleasant weekend or whatever's remaining of it, and I'll see you online.